Good day to each and everyone. So, we are the last group of the art appreciation subject. And for today's video is ato ang itackled ang lesson 5, Signs of the Times, Modernity and Beyond. Okay, so ang content di ay aning nga video is ato ang i-explain ang music of the 20th century, the second Viennese school, new styles and movement of music, and electronic music. So basically, the whole lesson is just a quick history lesson of what was the music of the 20th century, unsa ilang mga styles and movements sa ilang music, and so on. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so music of the 20th century. Now, in Europe, the 20th century began on a positive note, and the majority of the population was jubilant for a bright future. Now, when we talk about jubilant, you are expressing great happiness and triumph of your life. So, meaning to say, in anak ka positive ang mga tao di adto sa back then. There were feelings of advancement, prosperity, expansion, and optimism throughout the continent. Developments in technology, engineering, and medicine improved human lives also. But since kay 20th century man siya, and we all know that the 20th century kana siyang era has been dominated by many significant events, like daghan jud kayo ang mga nahitabuan na nga era, like naa didto nag-start ang Spanish flu pandemic nga katong grabe kayo nga pandemic nga daghan kayo ang nangamatay, and then diha po nag-start ang World War One, the World War Two, the opening of nuclear weapons and even space exploration, nationalism, decolonization, and even advancing in technologies. So naa dito nahitabo tanan. So however, sa ka positive o ka optimistic sa mga tao dito, nautro to siya because of those significant events which greatly shape the consciousness and attitudes of people, especially those in music and the arts. Okay, next, we have the second Viennese school, atonality and surrealism. Okay, now in the early 20th century, the second Viennese school came into being, but their musical idiom was, different from the previous century. It is principally made up of three composers that their music was characterized by shift from tonality to atonality. Now, when we talk about tonality, it refers to a particular system of relationships between notes, the chords, and keys. So, in layman's term, or in other words, it is the quality of the tone. Now, when we talk about atonality, it is the absence of functional harmony as a primary structural elements, meaning to say that is music, or that is music which is not centered on a certain key. Like for example, if you are going to listen to this type of music, and then you cannot decipher whether it is in the key of G or the key of F, or whether it is in the right key, and so on. Their music also employed surrealism. Okay, so unsa man ang surrealism? Now, when we talk about surrealism, it is a compositional technique that equally uses all the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. It is sometimes called 12-tone technique. And this is also, this ensures that all notes will receive equality of use throughout a composition. Okay, so kinsa man da itong mga composers ang nag-create aning nga group. So, the three major composers were Arnold Schoenberg, Alban Berg, and Anton Webern. Okay, next, so we have characteristics of 20th century music. So, way back then, lahi biya ang music lahi ang music sa una sa music karon. So before, daghan kay characteristics of music, and These are the things that are under of those. So we have unconventional meters, the melody, the dissonance and consonance, the tonality, texture, multi-meter, unusual meter, and polyrhythm. So, mao na siya ang mga characteristics of 20th century music because the influence of the 20th century music, mga good guys, brought new freedom and even wide experimentation with new musical styles and forms that challenge the accepted rules of music of earlier periods. In that way, manggod, kung ato siya i-connect karon sa modernization of music karon, medyo ang uban na nga outro, but then we have still some of those characteristics from 20th century nga present gihapon karon, especially sa ato ang country which is the Philippines, na gihapon na siya. Okay, so let's proceed to the styles of music. Okay, so mao na ang ilang mga styles of music. Okay. So, since important cultural trends often informed music of this period, it may be in romantic, the modernist, neoclassical, postmodernist, and so on. This as well as minimalism, the new complexity and new simplicity are more fully explored. Mo nang naa sila lain-laing style of music sa 20th century nga era. Okay, so the first style is called romantic style. So at the end of the 19th century, the romantic style was starting to break apart, moving along, various parallel courses such as Impressionism and Post-Romanticism. Diba, kabantay mo ang music sa una kay kanang nindot kaayo siya, especially kung classical type of music, nindot kaayo siya like nindot kay siya sa dalunggan paminawon, orgasm kaayo because dili man gud kuan ang music so na dili ingon nga loud, dili metallic and so on. Lahi ra biya gyud. So an ato man gud nga era or sa in 20th century man gud, the different styles that emerged from the music of the previous century influence composers to follow new trends, and sometimes as a reaction to that music, or sometimes as an extension to that music. And both trends, whether those two coexisted well in the 20th century. Okay, next. The next style is called neoclassicism. Okay, now when we talk about neoclassicism, it was a style cultivated between the two world wars which sought to revive the balanced forms and clearly perceptible thematic process of the 17th and 18th centuries in a repudiation of what were seen as exaggerated gestures and formlessness of late romanticism. So, katong mga nindot kaayo mga symphonic sounds type, mga symphonic sounds type of music, so dili na to siya makita katong mga mga neoclassical type of music nga mga nindot kaayo. And I think kung familiar mo ni Cass Daly, usa siya sa mga nindot kaayo mo dala og mga inato mga operatic type of music. So if you have time, you can research about her music and her songs and her sounds. So next, okay, the next style is called jazz influence classical composition. So there are numbers of composers combined elements of the jazz idiom with these classical compositional styles. So kinsa man to sila? Okay, so the first one we have Leonard Bernstein, followed by Aaron Copland and George Gershwin, the Darius Milhaud, and Maurice Ravel. So mao to sila ang mga composers nga ilang gi-combine ang elements of jazz. When we talk about jazz, daghan ba na siya kanang forms. So ilahatong gi-combine and nakakam up sila classical compositional styles nga medyo patok pud ana nga era, patok ato nga era sa 20th century. Okay, so maura to ang ako and for the continuation, musunod na ang ako ang kauban nga group. Okay, so thank you.